Hello, hello. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fevzi Bilgin. I'm the executive director of the Rethink Institute. So this is our last session, last parallel session. We have a Turkish session on the other room about actually United States in Turkish. So we have I think we'll have a great panel tonight because we are going to address foreign policy issues, energy issues, and trade issues. At the same time, we have people from government, people from private sector, people from journalism, and I think it will be great. So we'll start with a keynote address by Ambassador Namık Tan, and then he will have to leave us because of his busy schedule. And I'm gonna ask from other panelists to speak up to 7 minutes so that we can have some opportunities for question. Ambassador, please.
Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I was about to give you one good news and one bad, but I ended up, unfortunately, missing the good one. The bad one was I was paid to speak for 3.5 years. I was a spokesperson of the foreign ministry. So I like to speak. This is the bad news. The good news was the only person on the face of the earth who could stop me is my wife. And she's not here. Actually, I asked her to come and join us, but she couldn't come. So anyway, I'll try to do it on my own, and I'll stop myself. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, let me first congratulate the Turkic-American Alliance and TUSCON for organizing this remarkable conference. Members of TAA are doing an incredible job to further improve ties between the US and the Turkic community. I personally witness and appreciate their hard work all over the country. Ladies and gentlemen, having spent 2/3 of my career on relations between Turkey and the US, I'm sometimes expected to formulate a catchphrase that can rightly summarize the nature of this unique partnership. While the search goes on, I do believe the nature of Turkish-American relations can best be summarized by 3 basic features: mutual trust, unity of vision, and close and effective cooperation. First of all, the two countries trust each other because we both have accumulated good memories and experiences about each other. We, the Turkish people, do not forget that our American friends backed us as the first ripples of a rising Soviet threat reached the Bosphorus. On our part, we did not hesitate more than six decades ago to send our sons to fight shoulder to shoulder with American friends in the mountains of Korea. Since then, we have fought together in many conflicts, ranging from Bosnia, Kosovo, Somalia, to Afghanistan. Secondly, Turkey and the US share a common vision: the promotion of peace, democracy, freedom, and prosperity. We both have powerful and functioning market economies. Our alliance in NATO gives us further solid ground and concrete framework to proceed and cooperate in difficult times. The translation of this shared vision into common efforts constitutes the third pillar of our relationship. We work and stand together on many issues, from combating terrorism to non-proliferation efforts, from fighting illegal trafficking to violent extremism. Respecting the organic nature of our developments and without imposing our own worldview, Turkey and US collaborate on regional issues as well. The Arab Spring, Syria, Iran, and Iraq are all challenging issues, as are the Balkans, Caucasus, Central Asia, Africa, Afghanistan, and North Korea. The list is long, and the agendas almost identical. But time and again, Turkey and US complement each other on these important subjects. Dear guests and dear friends, I'm very pleased to note that a fourth dimension was added to these three features: strong bonds of friendship at leadership level. The two administrations have developed very sincere, effective, and result-oriented dialogue, both at political and bureaucratic levels. When our leaders talk, they do not merely exchange usual expression of courtesy. They consult each other on serious regional and global issues. These frank and powerful channels of communication have an added value on our already robust alliance. Intimate dialogue between our leaders in recent years has been crowned by bilateral visits. The most recent one was 2 weeks ago. Secretary Kerry, in his first visit to a Muslim-majority country, was received by President Gül and Prime Minister Erdogan in Ankara. The issues on the table were so extensive that Foreign Minister Davutoğlu and Secretary Kerry had not only a working lunch, but also a dinner. And the only reason they did not have a working breakfast was that they were already running late in their programs. High-level contacts will continue in forthcoming months, both in Ankara and here in DC. Ladies and gentlemen, both countries are well aware that our alliance and shared vision require the deepening and widening of our economic relations. The commercial field is not yet reflecting the nature of our partnership. The total bilateral trade figure of $20 billion last year remains far below the true potential we could attain. Turkey has set for itself a tangible target by the time we reach 2023 to become one of the top 10 economies of the world. Economic relations with the US will be vital in realizing this ambitious goal. The main cooperation areas include, but not limited to, energy, enhancing business-to-business ties, joint initiatives in third countries, innovation, and entrepreneurship, working together to enhance Istanbul as an international financial center. One of the main obstacles for developing our commercial relations is the limitations on the Turkish exports. This is why we believe a bilateral free trade agreement is of utmost importance. Turkey has customs union with the EU. A number of countries have free trade agreements with both Turkey and the US. Eliminating restrictions on trade will be beneficial for both sides. It will create new jobs, new markets, and investment opportunities. At the same time, it will complement, further strengthen, and deepen an already robust Turkish-American partnership. Energy is another topic that cooperation of Turkey and US can make real-time changes. Today, safe, secure, sustainable, and affordable energy remains a priority for Turkey. We are trying to develop our own national resources, diversify our energy mix, and expand our suppliers and transportation routes. We believe that these efforts will also contribute to the energy security of Europe. We are aiming at establishing an uninterrupted and reliable flow of Greater Caspian and the Middle East hydrocarbon resources to Europe via Turkey and Turkish territory. We also consider cooperation in the field of energy as a leverage that can help in resolving regional conflicts. From Iraq to the Caspian Basin, from Eastern Mediterranean to the Balkans, is the key to bolstering prosperity and interdependence. Nevertheless, success will be possible through extensive cooperation among Turkey, US, and the EU. I would like to remind you that the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan crude oil pipeline was once referred to as a pipe dream. Today, it's operating in an uninterrupted and efficient way. It has positively changed lives of hundreds of thousands of people. In this respect, we do expect full commitment from the US side as well, as was the case in 1990s. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to underline once again that Turkey and the US stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, in confronting the many complex risks and threats of the new century. Our bonds of friendship, partnership, and alliance have never been stronger, and our cooperation never more meaningful. We still have a lot to do, but we have commitment and resources to achieve more. I believe the efforts of TAA attest to our dedication. High visibility of Turkic-American alliance all over the US is a strong indication of a better future for the Turkish-American partnership. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Let's continue the foreign policy conversation with another ambassador that we have on the table here, Mr. Ross Wilson, former U.S. ambassador to Turkey and a director at Atlantic Council.
You want me here or you want me up there?
It's up to you. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be at this event again, I think for the second year in a row. It's amazing to me to have such a terrific audience at 4:30 or so in the afternoon following many other events. I congratulate you for your patience with so many speakers here. It's a great honor for me to be able to follow my good friend, Ambassador Namık Tan. He is an outstanding representative for his country, does a great job in working through many very complicated issues in U.S.-Turkish relations. I do want to congratulate the organizers of this event and appreciate the invitation to return. I thought I would talk a little bit about U.S.-Turkish relations. I'll cover some of the same ground that Ambassador Tan did. There are a number of other speakers, and so I will confine myself to four main points. First, at the highest levels, U.S.-Turkish relations are, as Ambassador Tan suggested, very good. I've remarked in some other settings that U.S.-Turkish relations today are probably the best than at any time in history. By best, I mean an extensive and unprecedented level of dialogue, coordination, and common cause on key foreign policy issues in the region and in the world. It's as if people in capitals realized, in Washington and Ankara, realized who their counterparts are and discovered the telephone and the email as a way to communicate with one another on a day-to-day basis. Exchanges occur between senior people, secretaries of state, undersecretaries, assistant secretaries in a range of different departments, weekly, daily, and sometimes several times a day, on Middle Eastern European issues, on finance, trade, security, and a wide variety of other matters, where in the past contacts were maybe quarterly, maybe semi-annually, maybe not at all. The relationship now more resembles our dealings with our West European allies. And that's a real accomplishment for people who worked on this, because this is a transformation over the last 4 years. On this plane, one might say at a high level of generality, U.S.-Turkish relations are very, very good. But that leads to my second point, which is that on a number of specifics, they're not so good. And may, in fact, I think, become more problematic over the coming 12 to 18 months before they get better. Syria, for me, is Exhibit A. Whatever one thinks about the pros and cons of this or that approach to Syria, it's indisputable that the situation day by day there becomes graver and more threatening to the interests of Turkey, the United States, and to our friends and allies. To some senior officials here, Turkish policy on Syria looks impatient, shrill, even sometimes unfriendly. People here particularly dislike complaints about the U.S. position that seem never quite to be matched in what people in this capital hear by similarly sharp criticism of Russia and China for blocking UN Security Council consensus on a tougher line against Assad. To senior Turks that I talk with, and I was in Ankara about 2 weeks ago, Washington seems too obsessed with caution. In Ankara, one senior official argued to me that Russia and Iran have decided where they stand on Syria, and that Washington should too. Another almost longed for the robust international activism that President Bush was famous for, and pleaded for more effective American leadership even along those lines. Although I believe that our countries are well wired together on the problems of chemical and biological weapons in Syria, on patriots and other spillover issues that are very threatening, on refugees, and on some other Syrian matters, these disconnects that I referred to are important ones, and they're not good. A close second is in the disconnect department is Iraq. For policymakers here, Turkey's energy needs have gotten ahead of a wise political agenda, or what Washington regards as a wise political agenda, and Ankara's actions seem to verge sometimes on the reckless that might even cause the collapse of the government in Iraq and possibly the country's breakup. For Turkish officials, again, to look at it the other way, Washington seems too beholden to Maliki, Prime Minister Maliki, and tolerant of his actions that run counter to Western interests. Washington, to some, looks too preoccupied with the risks of Iraq's breakup. Iran has not been a big divider since 2010, but contradictions lurk in the background, or maybe in the foreground. These include U.S. and European sanctions that are affecting Turkey very much, but in whose establishment Ankara had no say. The P5+1 diplomacy on Iran that leaves Turkey out, and the whole matter of kinetic action to deal with the Iranian nuclear threat that would, in the U.S. and the Turkish-American context, be a very big burden in our bilateral relationship. Turkish-Israeli relations and U.S. attitude toward them present another set of concerns. So do domestic developments in Turkey for many people here. Turkish-U.S. relations, maybe to conclude this point, have always been hard even when they're relatively good, and I think that's the case today. Ambassador Ricciardone and Ambassador Tan certainly have their work cut out for them. Conferences like this that put problems, and we all can acknowledge there are real problems, and others that I have not mentioned, into a broader context, I think makes them more workable, or at least more manageable for the people who are involved in them. Third, a whole new avenue has opened up on the bilateral side over the last 4 years. Ambassador Tan referred to progress on our economic relations. I give a lot of credit to Undersecretary Hormats, who I believe was here earlier today, Assistant Secretary of State Fernandez, Assistant Secretary of Commerce Comunez. they have done 100 times more than any of their predecessors to give real substance to the economic component of U.S.-Turkish relations. Turkish leaders, as Ambassador Tan noted, have recently taken notice of talks now getting underway on a U.S.-European transatlantic trade and investment partnership, a U.S.-EU free trade agreement, and what it may mean for Turkey. I understand that Foreign Minister Davutoglu raised this with Secretary Kerry when he was there on March 1st. That's a very good thing. I would encourage those who want to work in this area to really get into the nitty-gritty issues, to cultivate ties with the new U.S. trade representative when he or she is named, to engage with the U.S. business community, and to be prepared to make some concessions to get what Turks want and need in this market. I spent 2 years as a trade negotiator in between my tours in Baku and Ankara. Lesson one for me was that trade agreements are not about foreign policy, they're about trade. And whatever their foreign policy merits, trade agreements have to advance American commercial and economic interests, or they will not happen. Fourth, I hope that over the next 10 to 20 years, the sort of vision thing that I see so well represented in the agenda for this conference continues to develop in Turkey and in Turkey's approach to the region around it. In looking over the program, I was struck by its extensive focus on the region. It's reflective of Ankara's ambitions throughout that region, of course. In addition to the regional leadership and integrationist policies that Turkey already pursues on oil and gas, you'll hear more about that later, with respect to Kurds in Turkey and elsewhere, on trade and visa liberalization, the Turkish airline shows in traveling everywhere around the region, on Syrian refugees, to name just a few. I hope that Turkey can play a stronger and more supportive role in the Caucasus and Central Asia. Taken as a whole, it's my view that these countries are falling behind at a time when much of Asia, sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America are experiencing dynamic and well-diversified economic growth, ensuring more freedom for their peoples, and improving their political stability and the region's political stability in the bargain. That's a big problem. It's one that Turkey can help to lead on. Turkey can also help to fashion a new regime of peace and stability and prosperity in the Eastern Mediterranean by moving now, following the election of a new government in Cyprus, to resolve the Cyprus problem. It can take on a leadership role in what I think is an increasingly fragile South Caucasus through its relations with Baku and by returning to the normalization process with Armenia. These things are very hard. They constitute a tough international agenda that looks maybe a little distant in the context of the very burning problems in Syria, Iraq, and elsewhere. Magnanimous and creative diplomacy can create a better future for Turkey and for the countries to Turkey's east, and to enable all of them, Turkey and its Turkic neighbors and partners, to be a force for peace and stability over the coming 10 to 20 years. It's what great nations do. I look forward to actions along those lines from my Turkish friends. Thank you very much.
Now, let's turn over to Dr. Bülent Aras, who's based in Ankara and working at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's the chairman of Center for Strategic Research.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When I was invited to talk at this meeting, I did have some research, not that much, deeper research, but I just looked at the conference venue and the brochure they prepared, and I recognized several terms, the Turkic energy, trade, development. Well, I just thought what converges all these. I think it's a little bit geopolitics, which brings all those together. And I just, prepared a framework to give you an idea about Turkey's new geopolitics and how does, these issues make sense in Turkey's new foreign policy and new geopolitical understanding. Well, to have a title like Turkey's new geopolitics, it, already implies that Turkey has a new geopolitics. Indeed, Turkey has a new geopolitics and new geopolitical thinking, which has considerable degree of discontinuity with the past. There is now this notion of central country, which is, very much different than the earlier placing of Turkey in the world. How you place yourself in world politics, in your geography, makes a lot of sense, since those have implications for your policy making and your policy implementation. Now, Turkey, names itself as a central country for the past 10 years, based on some merits, and having this notion in the center of its foreign policy, it pursues policies according to this perception. Well, according to Turkish foreign policy makers, the Turkey's basic merit is its accessibility to everywhere. Turkey has an Oriental identity, which helps to act, confidently in the East. Turkey has Western perspective, which helps it to, to act confidently in the West, can bring solution to Eastern questions with confident Oriental identity, and offer something to West with the Western perspective it has. This is something not, this kind of assuming this kind of identity is something not very much unique to Turkey. There are other states in the world which benefits from how you may call relative hegemonic decline, the US absence in world politics. There are other countries which benefits from this situation and goes global kind of in their foreign policies. South Africa, Brazil, India, China, Russia. And Turkey is among these, these countries which assumes itself this kind of, active global role. But Turkey's difference from those states, Turkey has a Western identity, Western perspective, a long history with the West, but also, access to East. This is, Turkey's major difference from those countries. And, having these kind of merits, of course, not only, this identity, belonging, history, Turkey also, kind of had some progress at home. Nobody say Turkey is at a perfect situation in terms of economy, democracy, other issues, but had some progress, build up some self-confidence at home, and initiated a more active, more confident foreign policy around. There is a scholar specializes on third world. His name is Muhammad Ayub. He has, a great book called Third World Security Predicament. And in that book, he says, once you know the security in the developing countries, we don't have third world anymore, but that gives an idea what I am referring to. He says, in those kind of countries, security is mainly a domestic issue. Once you put your home into order, you feel more secure. And then when you had security at home, you become an exporter of security, and you become more confident. Once you put your home into order, and then you feel more confident. This is what Turkey has done, having this new global perspective, become a more confident actor in the neighborhood, and opened up to the regions beyond its neighborhood. And it has gone all the way to Africa, the Latin America, some Asian countries. Well, Turkey now presents itself, as an emerging power, and this power is, a soft power, and but that requires some kind of explanation. What kind of soft power Turkey is, and how Turkey assumes itself or presents a power projection in this new geopolitical understanding. That will also help us to understand, to connect Turkey's new geopolitics with the issues that we are now focusing in this convention. Well, the power instruments of Turkey's soft power is mainly the strategic thinking, and then diplomatic skills, NGO involvement, Turkey's people at large, economic activity, and public diplomacy. This also reflects the certain degree of discontinuity with the former foreign policy understanding. We can go into details if you ask questions during Q&A session. And now, having a new style of power instruments and projection, a global vision of foreign policy, Turkey extended its geographical scope. as I said, the neighborhood, the regions beyond the neighborhood, and all the way goes to all around the world. Foreign Minister Davutoğlu, he's actually the main architect of new foreign policy, and he's now Foreign Minister, of course, implementer of this new geopolitical line. In one of this meeting of ambassadors, he said, referring to Mustafa Kemal Atatürk's saying during the War of Independence, he said, there is no constant line of diplomacy, but a platform of diplomacy. The platform is the whole world. Like hatlı diplomasi yok, satı diplomasi vardır. And satı is, that is the platform, is the whole world. This reflects policymakers' imagination of foreign policy and geographic imagination. And this geographical scope, the expansion of geographical scope is also reflected a kind of thematic expansion. And one theme, Turkey now made part of this new geopolitical vision, is the energy itself and development. Turkey is now emerging as one of the major donor countries. Development assistance is now part of Turkey's foreign policy. But I'll briefly mention about the role of energy in this picture. This does not mean Turkey did not have a policy of energy before. We all know the story about Bakü-Ceyhan, Turkey's involvement in East-West energy corridors. But now Turkey has a different perspective. Turkey reflects this notion of central country into its energy policies. And now there is a shift from this East-West corridor understanding or playing a role between the energy lines between East and West. Turkey now assumes itself a central role and tries to make Turkey an energy hub. That means not only East and West, North and South, and all the way there around. And that's why you see Turkey involving in each and every pipeline projects going on around. Sometimes this has been reflected as controversial, but this is the part of being a leading role, having a leading role in those projects and involving all of those. Having said that, why Turkey have this kind of role? Of course, there are two obvious reasons. One is, to increase Turkey's geopolitical importance, the political importance, and benefit from, hosting those pipeline roads. And the second is securing its own consumption. This is also very much useful if Turkey succeeds to make Turkey a hub. That's going to help Turkey to secure its own consumption. As I said, the Turkey assumes itself an active and leadership role in each and every pipeline project it involves. And as you may recognize from Nabucco project, I don't know if it's a pipe dream or it's going to be reality, but Turkey, played a leading role which was not existent before. Turkey also have an inclusive approach. Turkey invites, all the actors which may take part in any projects that either Turkey leads or becomes part of it. And Turkey also, very much values one principle of its regional policy. This is the promotion of regional integration through economic means. And Turkey is very much on the side of using these pipeline projects for facilitating economic integration in the region, which is going to make, at the end, political stability more possible. Well, something else is also going on inside Turkey. There is this increase in interagency cooperation. This cooperation between Minister of Energy and Foreign Minister and also Turkey's official pipeline company is at the best level now. I can follow some of the discussion going on among all these, and this interagency is something new in Turkey, but that also reflects how this Turkish bureaucracy, state mechanism adapts itself to the new notion of foreign policy. They are behind this new geopolitics and trying to adapt themselves to the new situation. And one variable, and the last part, is this business community. Turkey's current policy values Turkish business community's involvement in energy issues. Prime Minister himself promotes this issue very well. Well, this has been something of a 6-7 minutes summary of what's going on, all those, and Turkish foreign policy. I hope it helps. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, our next speaker is Bülent Keneş, editor-in-chief of Turkey's English daily Today's Zaman, and he will talk about impact of Turkish soft power on trade and development, which will be a good segue to our next segment in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Fevzi. You got this panel, okay? Okay. Right now? Okay. Here you got this panel, which is focused on economic development, the expansion of trade and energy. I will touch neither on Turkey's strategic position, nor on its relations with regional energy sources or energy basins. After all, the other panelists have already examined some aspects of these topics, and I think that the other incoming panelists will also touch upon these subjects. So, as Fevzi reminded, what I would like to focus on are the elements of soft power which Turkey has used so successfully in recent years. I want to speak about how this wealth of soft power has influenced Turkey's development, its growing prosperity, and the developments of its economic and trade relations with other countries. Dear friends, while every country has its own source of soft power, only some are really aware of these sources. As for Turkey, which possesses a vital geopolitical position and military strength, a deep-rooted history and a rich culture, and sees the future of economic and socio-political development as being intertwined with universal values such as basic human rights and freedoms, the superiority of justice and liberal economy, it is a country with extremely rich sources of soft power. As citizens in a country where the economy is constantly strengthening, Turkish entrepreneurs have seen a tremendous increase in self-confidence over the years. Simultaneous to the increasing economic strength and prosperity throughout Turkey, the media sector has grown rapidly with hundreds of new TV channels, thousands of new radio stations, and many, many more new newspapers. The output of culture from Turkey, whether we are talking about the cinema, TV series, literature, or music, has reached the level of spreading influence beyond our borders. And just as our cultural output has increased and expanded, we have also seen giant steps taken in communications and transportation. While there were no direct flights between Istanbul and New York in the 1980s, the increasingly powerful national airlines of Turkey now offer direct flights to major cities in countries all around the globe. With new destinations added every year to its flight program, Turkish Airlines has truly brought Turkey and the rest of the world together. And so Turkey, which has experienced a true sort of quantum leap in both domestic and international communications, as well as transportation possibilities, is seeing tremendous development in tourism, trade, cultural exchange, education, and many other areas. The soft or slow-motion revolutionary reforms which were carried out in Turkey in the first half of the 2000s as part of the EU accession process wound up providing a source of inspiration for other Muslim countries, which looked toward Turkey as a secular and democratic Muslim country. It cannot be claimed that the inspiration provided by Turkey played no role in the developments in the Middle East referred to by so many as the Arab Spring. In the same way, the zero problems approach to foreign policy has become one of the important soft power factors possessed by Turkey, which has tried so hard to export peace and stability to its neighbors. In fact, this policy has had deep-rooted effects on the economic relations between Turkey and its neighbors, with trade between Turkey and its neighbors rising from just $4 billion in 1991 all the way to $82 billion in 2008. In the meantime, located at a geopolitical transit point between East and West, the Middle East and Europe, and the Christians and Muslims, Turkey is a democracy with a liberal market economy, a fact which also increases its soft power influence. Other manifestations of this growing soft power include Turkey's shouldering of the role of facilitator in many international problems, as well as its role as one of the co-founders of the Alliance of Civilizations. What is more, these gains are not confined to being the results of the efforts of a political superstructure. namely the AK Party government in recent years. In fact, one needs to recognize in these gains the significant effects of a much more deep-rooted and vast socio-economic and cultural infrastructure, or we can call this as an undercurrents or groundswell. These transformative societal undercurrents, whose effects could be felt starting from the years of the late President Turgut Özal. And they had not only a vital influence on domestic politics and the country's economy, but also on Turkey's foreign relations. These undercurrents also became an important motivating factor in Turkey's move to become involved in new regions where it had previously not been very active. So much so, in fact, that this undercurrent became more than just a strategy for Turkey, which was opening up into Africa, the Pacific, and Latin America. In fact, the societal undercurrents, transnational efforts created a situation and responsibilities that derived from these developing relations. In this sense, the role played by the Hizmet movement, which takes its inspiration from the ideas of respected Turkish Islamic scholar Mr. Fethullah Gülen, has led to Turkey's active presence in more than 150 different countries, cannot be denied. It should also be noted that the widespread recognition and use of Turkish goods over a wide region wherein Turks have developed strong transnational relations is no coincidence either. On the other hand, just as much as Turkey's economy, politics, and cultural arenas have strengthened, its capacity in terms of humanitarian aid have also expanded. Today, we see many Turkish humanitarian aid associations or foundations heading off to help people anywhere in the world that a natural or man-made disaster has struck. Dear friends, the magazine Monocle has published a listings of a soft power from over the last 3 years, registering Turkey's influence in this area. According to Monocle, the whole concept of soft power, which was up until recently under the monopoly of the West, has gained tremendous influence and importance in Turkey, China, Brazil, and even Russia in recent years. According to various criteria put forward by Monocle, the United Kingdom is #1 and America is #2 when it comes to soft power. As for Turkey, it is ranked as one of the fastest rising countries in the arena. For now, Turkey is listed as number 20 on the soft power list, but it will be no surprise to me if it manage to rise much higher in the coming years. And in the end, there can be no question that both the Turkish economy and trade benefit from all this. I can say with complete confidence that it is in fact these soft power influences that have played the biggest role in Turkey's $150 billion level of exports. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Well, I think Turkish companies working abroad and increasingly competitive contribute a lot to Turkey's growing soft power. So we have a CEO of a great company, one of the great Turkish companies here in the panel. So let's hear from Mr. Kurama how they actually do that. Tabii.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I try to make it as interesting as possible and as little boring as possible as well. You know, I was asked to talk about the large companies and what's their role. Do they help a country to develop, or do they hinder the development of the country? What the role they play in the globalization, and try to add a couple of points. One thing about it, yes, I do represent a large company. It's a company of $11 billion turnover, 55 factories in 10 countries, 37,000 people work for that, 7,000 of them outside Turkey, and that, in any respect, I think that that's a large company. Let's see that what a large company plays in the economics of the country. And I try to make it as objective as possible. Well, when you talk about objectivity, nobody is 100% objective. If I have any biases, I have two biases, and my biases are that I'm a great believer of democracy and I'm a great believer of liberal markets. So if I have any biases, they must be those two. Now, let's talk about Turkey. I don't know, as a country, and I'm a proud Turkish citizen, but although we have a great heritage, actually Turkey is relatively a young country. In 1923, after the First World War, Turkey came out from the ruins of this great debacle and that, and when it came out, actually, there was not much, in order to talk about any private entrepreneurs or that, you need capital or accumulation of capital. After the First World War in Turkey, there was not much capital. And you are suffering the ruins of the war. So what happened in Turkey, although the founders of Turkey first started to encourage the liberal economy and private companies, because of lack of capital accumulation, what happened, the state needed to take this role. And between the First World War and the Second World War, what we see in Turkey, state initiatives are more prominent than private initiatives, I can say that. Turkey didn't join the Second World War until the last minute, but it doesn't mean that Turkey didn't suffer. I remember at my father's birth certificate, there were stamps, what we call bread rationing stamps and that. So for all those 4 years, Turkey was suffering as much as any other rest of the country, and it was very difficult to talk about any private companies during this era. Only after the Second World War, we started to see some private initiatives in Turkey started to emerge. Between the period between 1944, 1945, and 1980, what happened, when we look at the emerging markets in the world, we can identify two leading ways of development. One of them is what the economists call export-driven development. That's Korea and Taiwan, they followed in this one. And the other one was what we practiced in Turkey, we call import substitution. Import substitution means that you're not allowed to import anything, and the country is protected by high, custom barriers. The private initiatives, private entrepreneurs at that time, what they try to do, and especially if you are in an industry which you need to develop something, the ability to produce something was more important. In an import substitution industry, the power of producers are more important than the power of producers of buyers. So anybody who can produce something that has relatively, because the consumers, they had little choice, they had in a better position to do. So most of the companies, they start to adopt the ability to develop, to produce something. And that's how industrial companies started to emerge. But the industry that we operated was a little bit different than the others. Why? Because it was, although the heavy industry in Turkey was protected by custom barriers, the food industry, because of its nature, it was not that protected. Because the leading companies of the food, for instance, in the world, like Nestle, they produced in Turkey for more than 100 years. So food industries, because of the companies that established in Turkey, they're less protected compared to others. It was not only one company, all the major fast-moving consumer goods companies, Unilever, P&G, Kraft, and that, they had very long histories in Turkey. So although the heavy industries during this period was protected, the food industry or consumer goods industry was less protected, and the global competition is already in the country, and the companies which operate in this sector, they need to be very, very competitive. In 1980s, a lot of things changed. With the late, my friend Bülent Bey, he mentioned in 1980s with the late president of Turgut Özal, the policy of Turkey totally changed, and Turkey became more competitive and more open to international companies, to international competition. Turkey turned out to be more open to international trade. Custom barriers lifted, and Turkey became more international, part of the international trade. What companies like ourselves, then that what we did adapt at that time, instead of producing and internalizing all the production factors, what we started to do is that we started to form joint ventures with the leading companies in the world. A good number of companies, some from US like Kellogg's, and that became a part of this one. So what we did, we started to compete in a global environment with the global competitors in Turkey. From the year 2000 onwards, the story has been a little bit changed. By the year 2000, Turkey became more adept to international trade, with the exports reaching to significant numbers, but suffering one major illness, I can say, very high inflation. The period between 1980s and the year 2000, inflation in Turkey was reaching almost 3 digits and distorting all production factors in the country. But from the year 2000 onwards, both with the austere policies of the government, the budget deficit came under control, the inflation came under control, and the companies started to make longer-term plans. One longer-term plan is that started to be more competitive in the international area. And we started to focus on global investments. And especially the period between 2000 to 2013, our major focus in the development became taking the business to the international markets. And the current strategy of the group is that at least 50 to 60% of our earnings should come in the international arenas. That followed both organic and inorganic growth. Organic growth means that you started to invest greenfield factories and that in neighboring countries. And inorganic investment is that we did the largest acquisition for a Turkish company in the international arena. What will be the future? The future of the country, I'm sure that Turkey is destined to be a great country in the region because of a number of reasons, because of its geopolitical location, because of its natural resources, and the biggest natural resource being its human capital and the entrepreneurs. But besides on this one, you know, what we can talk about is Turkey, if it will grow as a great nation, it will come with the great companies. And I'm sure that there will be the seeds of the great companies is in there. In the international area, there were more and more companies, Turkish companies will start to compete, and we will be able to see not only one, but many examples of this one. Thank you very much.
Let's hear now the U.S. trade business, U.S.-Turkey business relations from no less than Chairman of U.S.-Turkey Business Council, Mr. Charles Johnston.
Good afternoon. Is it working? Or I'll just project? Okay. I'm delighted to be here, and I first want to express appreciation to the Turkic-American Alliance as well as Reinvest Institute for putting this program on and actually giving us the opportunity to talk expansively about not only Turkey, but obviously the region. My name is Rick Johnston. I am the Director and Senior Vice President for International Government Affairs at Citi, and also am very proud to serve right now as the Chairman of the U.S. section of the U.S.-Turkey Business Council, which is a sort of an advisory panel, if you will, of U.S. and Turkish business people appointed by our respective governments to help find ways by which to improve the trade flow and investment flow between our two countries. Citi, as some of you probably know, is the largest global bank in terms of footprint. We operate in actually 160 countries. But we're very proud to be able to say that we have established and have been working in Turkey for 40 years, and in fact, doing business in the region, in the Turkic region, for many of those years. We also have offices established in Kazakhstan. And we are actually quite optimistic and positive about the growth for the region, not just Turkey, but certainly, as you've heard and as you've seen throughout the day, Turkey is a very definite growth prospect for the near future. And we commend the Turkish government, of course, for its Plan 2023 in which it intends to be one of the 10 largest economies in the world. Citi certainly wants to be a part of that. But let me talk a bit about the U.S.-Turkey Business Council. We, as I say, we're advisors, really. We're not a membership organization like the American Turkish Council or some of the other organizations here in Washington. We try to help our governments understand pragmatic ways by which to try to enhance trade and investment between the two countries. We're entering into our third year as a council, and wanted to share with you at least some of the ideas that we as business people have jointly, and this is very important. We sit down and you don't have a U.S. recommended set of actions and then a Turkish private sector set of actions. We sit down with our Turkish counterparts and come up with mutually agreed upon proposed actions by the governments that can help possibly enhance trade and investment. And I'm going to list this not just because it's important to Turkey, in our opinion, but it's actually, I think, a template for something that the region should be looking at as to what motivates what, in my opinion, is the most important single commercial activity that can help development and indeed can, in fact, improve trade, and that is investment. Unfortunately, in today's lexicon of international commercial relations, you hear the term trade constantly used. We, I think, in the last 50 years, by benefit of the General Agreement on Tariffs and trade liberalization, we have reached now beyond that point of market access as the only focus for our governments to attend to. It is now beyond the border kinds of issues for investors. And what has been empirically demonstrated in the last several years by a number of different research institutes is that investment drives exporting and importing. It drives the kind of familiarity that you're looking for and predictability, in fact, that you're looking for when you're trying to enhance a bilateral, if not a plurilateral, commercial relationship. I was interested in the comments by my colleague on the panel here about soft power. My personal view, having been involved in this field of endeavor for over 40 years now, is that actually it's through commercial relationships that soft power is developed. And I think even if you look at our own U.S. State Department, they got that message in the last administration, and it was clearly articulated by Secretary Clinton, and I suspect it's going to continue that way going forward. It's the U.S. economic presence and our best practices and our investment, what comes with our investment, that is going to keep the United States as a leading economic power in the next few decades. And that's where I think we're going to find our focus. The list of things, as I said earlier, that we as the Council have been recommending to the governments include perhaps creating joint industrial zones in which U.S. parties as well as Turkish parties can invest jointly within the zone, obviously taking advantage of certain incentives and benefits. These zones would not only be used to promote, we'll call it investment and labor increases in Turkey, but we also view that possibility as a platform for moving product from those zones into the region as a whole. We recommend better legislative and regulatory transparency. Of course, that's a mantra for virtually any business trying to do business in another country. But that is really important. It lends to the kind of predictability that businesses look for, particularly when they're investing. Energy projects was a topic that our collective group thought were worth some focus by the governments in terms of enhancing understanding of how to enter into these projects. And I have to say to all of us in this room, one of the things that really, and Ms. Lockwood I think would certainly subscribe to this, we need better feasibility study done on how to do business, whether it's in Turkey or in any of the Turkic republics. Because without a decent feasibility study, and now I'm going to speak as a banker, these projects are not bankable. You've got to have a good feasibility study behind it, and that's where entities like the Trade Development Agency of the United States government or other entities within the governments can help promote those kinds of studies. Another sector that we think is very viable and very open and to promising investment and collaboration between the United States and Turkey is in the aerospace field. We also believe that improvements need to be made in Turkey in certain areas of intellectual property rights. I'm sure that in most Turkic republics it's the same story. And last but not least, we totally encourage the governments to seek ways by which to help U.S. companies and Turkish companies come together to discover and examine possible joint venture projects in infrastructure, not only in Turkey, but in the region again. Again, you can tell, we see Turkey not only as a market in and of itself, but as an excellent platform for business in the region. Let me close by making one observation about Turkey that I think is being missed a bit, and that's in light of the launching of the International Services Agreement negotiations that are taking place in Geneva as a collateral effort following the Doha round stall. We've got 47 countries, bundled together as the European Union, that have indicated an interest and a willingness to participate in these negotiations to create an international services agreement. One of those countries, a key country in my mind, is Turkey. It's the leading developing country that's going to be participating in this negotiation. And quite frankly, when you look at the kinds of economies that we all aspire to live in and to work in, it's a services-oriented economy that is the most productive and certainly provides the greatest income per capita. So Turkey is signaling, I think, to not only the United States, but to all the rest of the world, that it's ready now to move into that phase of economic development, to develop a stronger services economy. And I would say, keep your eye on that ball, because that's the one that's worth playing with. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about the energy finally. Now, next speaker is Ms. Andrea Lockwood. Her information is not in the book, so let me read her full title. She is Deputy Assistant Secretary for Eurasia, Africa, and Middle East at the U.S. Department of Energy.
Okay. Thank you. I hope you can all hear me. I am very pleased to be here this afternoon and to talk about Turkey and the whole Turkic region. We are very pleased at the Department of Energy to be cooperating with a number of countries across the region, and very excited about the energy prospects, energy markets, and energy relationships. But today I'm here to talk about Turkey and want to thank the Turkic American Alliance for inviting me here today. I am at the Department of Energy and have been at the Department of Energy for 27 years, so I know a fair amount about energy and am very excited to be working in this growing, exciting region. We are in a time of growing world energy demand, and that is a good thing. That means we have growing populations, growing incomes, increasing energy access across the world. We are, at the same time, that brings concerns about energy security, addressing climate change. All of these things come up, and nowhere do they come up more than in Turkey, which is heavily reliant on imported energy. The International Energy Agency forecasts that global energy demand will increase by more than 1/3 between this year and 2033. Given these demands, energy efficiency, one of the topics that I really want to focus on today, the benefits are becoming clearer, and utilizing energy efficient technologies becomes imperative. The Republic of Turkey's experience is highly representative of this trend. Turkey's fast-growing economy has led to great prosperity and higher standards of living for all of its citizens. With this has become greater demand for energy and increased dependence, as I mentioned, on imported oil and gas. Therefore, the Turkish government has moved and acted decisively to promote energy efficiency, to bolster energy security and economic growth. The government of Turkey is providing incentives for industrial energy efficiency, offering grants for companies that make energy savings investment, establishing guidelines for regular energy audits for large companies, requiring highly qualified energy managers for its organized industrial zones, and setting criteria for energy service companies. There are many more things that they're doing. The country is constantly striving to increase the rate of adoption of professional energy assessments. Policies and programs such as these have a significant positive impact on the future of the country, and we commend the Turkish government for its vision. There are numerous benefits to employing energy efficient processes and technologies. Not only does improved energy efficiency translate into reduced domestic consumption of energy resources, which improves the country's energy security, but it's also a reduction in burning fossil fuels, which contributes to improving air quality and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. On the more micro level, energy efficiency in the industrial sector has the potential to lower energy costs, improving the bottom line and improving a company's profitability. Energy efficiency deployments, as we found firsthand in Turkey, have a very short payback period and avoid the need for substantially more expensive new infrastructure. More power plants you take away the need for more power plants if you adopt energy efficiency measures. For all of these reasons, we believe energy efficiency is a win-win for both American technology, expertise, and for Turkey. The government of Turkey recognizes, as I mentioned, that adopting energy efficiency practices is a critical element in maintaining their high growth without increasing their import dependence. At our recent U.S.-Turkey collaborative efforts have demonstrated we can, working together, seize this moment in time and advance such practices, demonstrate to the world the benefits of energy efficiency. The Near Zero Zone, which many of you may have heard of, is a project between the U.S. government and the Turkish government that has demonstrated how an analytic approach to energy efficiency can significantly reduce energy consumption and provide opportunities for trade growth, for job growth, for economic competitiveness across the board. We led at the Department of Energy a multi-agency U.S. government effort, which included significant contributions from our State Department, from the Department of Commerce, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, which was just mentioned, the U.S. Export-Import Bank, and OPIC. The Turkish Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, the Renewable Energy General Directorate, was our partner, and they were an extremely strong partner. The project began in 2011 with the U.S. Trade Development Agency doing these preliminary feasibility studies that were mentioned, and they identified significant energy improvement opportunities and a potential for a large number of U.S. exports to help Turkey meet its energy efficiency potential. In February 2011, DOE's Oak Ridge National Laboratory sent technical experts to perform a baseline energy audit for 20 selected companies in one of the organized industrial zones in Turkey. From 2011 to 2012, 7 U.S. energy service companies completed professional energy usage technical assessments for those 20 participant companies. And they were companies across the board engaged in a number of energy-intensive efforts, along with a couple of utilities. Based on this data, the energy service companies categorized improvement recommendations as near, mid, and long-term. Participant companies were free then to make their choices about what they would employ. And I will tell you that the the number of technologies that were adopted by these companies was very impressive. They really were surprised and extremely pleased at the savings that they could make. The impressive results included an average decrease of 24% in electricity usage, and the projects paid for themselves in as short as 18 months with an average rate of return of 56%. These results, we extrapolated them to think about what would happen if we took what happened in these 20 companies and applied it to only 10% of the industrial zones, 52,000 industrial facilities across Turkey. And if even 10% applied these savings, you're looking at savings of $1.6 billion a year. In energy costs saved, you could build 6 fewer power plants, and decrease natural gas imports by over 2.5 billion cubic meters per year, reducing CO2 emissions by 33,394 metric tons. These are big numbers, and that's for a small amount of action. So we took these numbers to the High Council of Industrial Zones in Turkey, and they were excited about expanding this to the 52,000 industrial zones across Turkey. We had a workshop with industrial zone managers and taught them how to conduct their own industrial base audits. This is using software to just get you over the hump of figuring out whether making that critical energy efficiency investment is worth it. It doesn't replace professional assessments, and that's something that we made clear to those managers, but they were very excited about being able to plug in their types of energy use and their electricity bills and figure out ballpark numbers for their own possible savings. From these, professional energy audits and technology providers could work with the companies to realize those broad results. So what we heard from the zone managers as they walked away was very enthusiastic ideas about how they could employ energy efficiency across Turkey, and we hope that that's going to translate, and it's already started to translate into opportunities for U.S. energy companies that do energy efficiency work. We feel like a project like this, where you move from the big picture goals to the very concrete results, is a way that our two governments have cooperated and will continue to cooperate very successfully. We feel like these type of public-private partnerships that utilize energy technologies, energy efficiency technologies in this particular case, really provide a model for the way that we can work together to the benefit of all of our citizens and the citizens of Turkey. And we look forward to replicating these kinds of projects across Turkey and across the Turkic region and really around the world. So thank you very, very much for your time and your attention.
Okay, our last speaker is Mr. Ata Ceylan, and he is another representative of the business private sector from Turkey in energy area.
Dear parliamentarians, distinguished participants, first of all, I would like to thank to Turkic-American Alliance and to the Rethink Institute to give me that opportunity to present Turkey energy outlook and cooperation opportunities.
Siz oturun, o başlar. Tamam.
Yeah, as you see here, there are some figures about the Turkish economy, and there are some figures also about the, especially for the forces of the Turkey right now. And in terms of central allocation, we can say clearly that more than 70% of the world's energy resources are located in south and east of Turkey, while the second largest energy consumer, Europe, is located to the west of Turkey. And through this growth, Turkey has one of the highest growth rates in the world. And of course, that growth also bring also demand increase in the energy demand at that time. And as you know, the Turkish economy has shown remarkable performance with its steady growth over the last 10 years. And as you know, that is caused by the political stability and the successful government. And in terms of energy, Turkey ranks 6th in Europe in terms of current power plants, capacity, and electricity demand. And Turkey is the most rapidly developing electricity market in Europe. And when you check the energy profile of Turkey, as we mentioned that with the Turkey's rapidly growing economy in last decade, Turkey's energy demand has been continuously increasing. And with the average rate of 7% of growth rate in energy demand, that is the highest energy growth rate in all Europe and second in the world after China. And according to estimations by the Department of Energy of Turkey, the growth rate will be steady. Yeah. When you check, as you can see from this pie chart, Turkey's primary energy supply is from natural gas, hydroelectric, and coal-fired power plants. Of course, on the other side, renewable resources are starting to increase their share in the energy supply. And due to the energy demand, around 77% of growth, at that time, Turkey, to reach to the 2023 targets, those are nominated by the government, Turkey needs at least 4,000 of megawatt base load to the grid every year in order to keep with this demand. And this accounts to around $7 billion energy investments per year. And according to our 2023 targets, you can see here very easily that Turkey set some energy targets and especially increasing the share of the renewables to the 30%, increasing the wind installed capacity to the 20,000 megawatt, and utilize nuclear power plant at least 5%, and utilize the remaining hydro and lignite reserves, and reaching to the geothermal installed capacity of 600 megawatt. And after that, I would like to mention also the potential cooperation areas between Turkey and US companies. Of course, the first topic, since the government already targeting the 30% of the renewable energy target, the first issue is renewable energy. Second is non-renewable energy, which is especially including the local lignites, shale gas, energy efficiency, environment, oil and gas pipeline, and also technology transfer. For renewable energy projects, in fact, by 2023, Turkey set the goal of using all technically and economically feasible hydroelectric potential for electricity generation. Also, the wind is expected to be targeted to be 20,000 of megawatt. And for the solar, Turkey is one of the best location in Europe in terms of solar, but it is a pity that right now it is untapped, and has not been started any project for that. But we hope this year, the government will start to give the license for the solar projects as well. And right now, many international companies come to Turkey to discover opportunities, especially in PV modules manufacturing as well. And for non-renewable resources, as we mentioned that Turkey has good resource of lignites, local lignites, and also right now the government started to give some special incentives to those kinds of investors. And beside those lignites, of course, the Turkish government right now insisting for the nuclear power plant, at least 3 nuclear power plants, and one of them is right now signed as intergovernmental agreement with Russia to build the first nuclear power plant in Mersin, in south of Turkey. And for shale gas, of course, with the enormous success US has gained from utilizing its shale gas resources in such fields as Barnett Shale, and shale gas has also gained popularity among their other nations. And having vast amount of that knowledge, experience, and technology in shale gas exploration and production, US companies can be critical role player in extracting this resource in Turkey. And I already mentioned 2 promising deposits in Turkey. One of them is the Dadaş Basin, and the other is Trakya, Thrace Basin place. And other opportunity as a cooperation between Turkey and US is energy efficiency projects. And I think Mrs. Lockwood mentioned so much about that, and it is not needed to mention about, but we know that very well. US EXIM and also Department of Energy of US are so much interested in to develop these kinds of projects in Turkey, and we appreciate that cooperation, and we hope to expand it. And for the environment, emission reduction credits, Turkey is the largest gold standard voluntary emission reduction credits originator in the world. And also for the carbon capture and storage, this is one of the other cooperation opportunity. And after Kyoto is fully in effect, carbon capture and storage technology will be one of the ways we can reduce carbon dioxide emissions and keep fossil fuels in the electricity supply mix. Fossil fuels are an important part of the electricity mix because they let us to balance the intermittency of the wind and other renewable resources. And incineration plants also started very newly in Turkey, especially for the waste incineration. In terms of oil and gas pipelines projects, as we have mentioned at the beginning that since the Turkey is just in the strategic position between the producers and the consumers, of course there are some pipeline projects at that time. In fact, one of the most important projects, as we see, is the TANAP project. And thanks to our Azerbaijani brothers that they already cooperated with Turkey to install that pipeline and to secure the supply energy of Turkey and Europe as well. For Nabucco, as you know, it is not clear yet. And for BTC crude oil, right now, one of the successful projects at that time. In terms of technology transfer, that one of the potential cooperation between US and Turkish companies, in fact, with Turkey's central location, Turkey has the ability to reach both Middle Eastern and European market with many incentives given by the government for investments. It has economic cost of labor compared to Europe and skilled and experienced workforce. Turkey is giving great importance to renewable and non-renewable energy resources, inviting companies to invest in Turkey to produce some parts or all parts of energy generation systems in Turkey. And great opportunity exists, especially for solar energy and wind energy systems right now. And here you can see all the summarize of the opportunities which we already mentioned. And thank you for your attention.
Perhaps you haven't noticed, but we are 20 minutes over time. Well, thank you for your patience. We have to vacate the room very quickly because there will be a dinner set up here. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job. You condensed it very nicely.
Thank you.